Welcome to Creative Tien channel. Today we want to use LK150 knitting machine and knit a scallop edge or the shawl edge. And we are also using the mark English rib stitch, which is very easy, but it does need some hand manipulation. So let's get started. Here is the mark English rib stitch. You decide the interval. Every few stitches you have an open stitch, and you just use your latch tool to latch back up every 2 stitches. So it creates an interesting texture. That's a little bit bigger than purl stitch, but it's very similar to the purl stitches. So you can decide how often you want the mark English rib stitch, and you can decide how many stitches to cast on. I'm going to do every 5 stitches. Let me just set up the needle position. Every 5th stitch, I put it in a non-working position. So that's non-working position. You can cast on any way you like, and we'll need about 10 rows and start doing the reform. The yarn I'm using today is Lion brand Comfy Cotton Blend. It has slight sequencing and some texture, but it has cotton, so I like the natural fiber. I always like to do E-wrap because it's very simple and straightforward. I have my tension set to 9, that's the highest tension. You can adjust the tension and see which one you like. Now I put on some weight. I'm going to knit 10 rows. You can see the open ladder. Those we can latch up to become mark English rib. So we can take off the weight and start from the bottom. Those 2 lines in the bottom are very close together. You can treat them as one if you want. Now I pick up the 3rd stitch and then latch down, and then we go 2 lines up, 2 ladders up, and then latch down the top one, and we keep going 2 up. I'll latch down only the top one, 2 up, latch down, 2 up, latch down, and then put it back to the hook. And you can see we create a scallop, and we'll keep going until the end. We start from the 3rd line down, and then 2 up, 2 up, 2 up. Now you can see the scallop edge, and we'll just keep repeating that. So you can see the shawl edges, and it doesn't really curl. Now we'll hand the weight and then continue the next 10 rows. It's very similar to doing the purl stitch. And we will reform all the stitches again. 2 stitch up, latch back, 2 stitches up, latch back. So we'll just keep repeating that, knit 10 rows, drop down the stitches and reform it back until the length you like. I will just bind off normally. You transfer to the next stitch and then just knit one stitch. Transfer, knit one stitch, transfer, knit one stitch. That's the finished piece. You can see the scallop edge on one side, so this side will not curl. On the top it's not as obvious, but it still doesn't curl. That's the other side. This is the knit side, usually the front side, but you can use this as back side too. The left and right side still curl, and you will stop the curling at the mark English rib stitch. So I'm trying to reduce the outer fabric. I'll just leave one stitch outside and we'll see if it curves less. So this is my setting. The empty needle will be the mark English rib stitches. So outside that, it will be one stitch on each side. Now I will latch up and see how it looks. Now the edge doesn't curve much because it's very close to this stitch. And I will bind off the same way as before. We'll transfer to the next stitch and knit a stitch. And make sure it's not too tight. So that's the two samples of the mark English rib with the scalloped edge on one side. The other side is more flat, but it still doesn't roll. If you just leave one stitch or one column outside of the mark English rib, it will not really curl, like this one. Thank you for watching today and see you next week.